The lecture hall buzzed with the quiet scratching of styluses against datapads as Professor Marcus Webb's voice echoed through the amphitheater. Around the curved rows, alien cadets from 17 different species hunched over their notes, frantically recording every word about humanity's first contact protocols during the Centauri crisis. Only one human sat among them. Lieutenant Jessica Morrison leaned back in her seat, arms crossed, her datapad dark and untouched on the desk before her. Her relaxed posture stood in stark contrast to the furious note-taking surrounding her. The Tyrellian beside her had already filled 3 digital pages, all 4 of its arms working in synchronized harmony. Professor Webb, a distinguished Valdari with crystalline skin that refracted the lecture hall's lights into rainbow patterns, paused mid-sentence. His 3 eyes fixed on Jessica with what might have been irritation. Lieutenant Morrison, his translator, rendered his clicking speech into smooth English. I notice you're not recording any of this material. The Centauri crisis protocols are fundamental to advanced diplomatic theory. They'll certainly appear on your final examination. Jessica met his gaze without flinching. With respect, Professor, I don't need notes. A ripple of whispers spread through the amphitheater. The Tyrellian cadets' eyes widened, all 6 of them. Even the usually stoic Kryn delegates turned to stare. Professor Webb's crystalline features shifted in what Jessica had learned to recognize as the Valdari equivalent of a raised eyebrow. You possess an eidetic memory, Lieutenant? No, sir. Jessica's lips curved into a slight smile. I just don't need to take notes on my own after-action reports. The lecture hall fell silent. Professor Webb's translator remained quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a note of skepticism. Explain yourself, Lieutenant. Jessica stood, her movement drawing every eye in the room. She was used to it by now, being the only human in advanced classes at the Galactic Military Academy had made her something of a curiosity. Most humans were still catching up on thousands of years of lost technological development. But Jessica had tested into the highest level courses, much to the surprise of her alien instructors. You're teaching the Centauri crisis as historical theory, Professor. Specifically, you've been analyzing the diplomatic protocols established during first contact with the Centauri hive mind in 2187. She gestured toward the holographic display still frozen on the wall, showing a complex web of communication channels. That's my mission, sir. I was the communications officer aboard the UNSS Pathfinder. The whispers returned, louder this time. Professor Webb's crystalline form seemed to lose some of its luster. You were there. I was 19, Jessica continued, her voice steady. Fresh out of the academy, the Earth 1, before I transferred here. We were on a routine survey mission when we detected the hive mind's approach. Captain Rodriguez made me acting first contact officer when Commander Phillips was injured in the initial sensor pulse. She walked down the steps toward the front of the lecture hall, her boots clicking against the metallic floor. You said the key breakthrough was establishing a quantum-entangled communication protocol that could interface with a collective consciousness. That was my idea, Professor. I spent 42 hours straight working on it while the Centauri fleet held position, weapons charged, waiting for us to prove we weren't a threat. Jessica reached the holographic display and waved her hand through it, bringing up a new screen. This symbol here, the one you identified as the Centauri glyph for peaceful intent. We didn't know that's what it meant at the time. I chose it because it was the most frequently repeated pattern in their initial broadcasts. I took a gamble that repetition meant importance. The Tyrellian cadet raised one of its hands tentatively. But, the historical records say the protocol was developed by a team of Earth's top xenolinguists over several months. After the fact, yes, Jessica nodded. They refined what I created in the field. They made it elegant, efficient, teachable. What I built in those 42 hours was held together with coffee, desperation, and about 6 different violations of standard communication theory. But it worked. Professor Webb moved closer, his 3 eyes studying her with new intensity. The records list the protocol's creator as J. Morrison, UNSC. I assumed, given the significance of the achievement, that it was someone more senior. Common assumption, Jessica said without rancor. I've gotten used to it. The full debrief report took me 3 months to write. Every major first contact academy in the galaxy uses it as a primary source. I know because I've sat in 17 different lectures across 8 different institutions, listening to professors analyze my decisions. Why didn't you say something sooner? Asked a Crin student, its voice a series of harmonic tones. We've been studying this material for weeks. Jessica shrugged. Would you have believed me? A human barely 2 years out of Earth's academy, sitting in a class full of species whose civilizations were building interstellar empires while my ancestors were discovering fire. She gestured around the room. I'm here to learn from you, from cultures that have been navigating the complexities of galactic civilization for millennia. The fact that I happened to get lucky once doesn't change that. Lucky? Professor Webb's tone shifted to something approaching respect. Lieutenant, your actions prevented what our strategic analysts determined would have been a war costing billions of lives. The Centauri hive mind had never encountered individualized consciousness before. They interpreted our neural patterns as a form of aggressive chaos. Your protocol didn't just establish communication, it fundamentally changed how they perceived reality itself. I was scared out of my mind, Jessica admitted. I thought we were all going to die. Every simulation I'd run in training said we didn't have enough time, that the hive mind would interpret any complex signal as an attack pattern. I broke protocol, Professor. I ignored my training and just tried something different. The Turellian cadet leaned forward, all 4 arms steepled together. The human approach. Act first, apologize later. Jessica laughed. Something like that. Though I definitely apologized to Captain Rodriguez once it was over. Pretty sure I set a record for the most regulations violated in a single shift. Professor Webb's crystalline form pulsed with soft light, the Valdari expression of amusement. And yet, the Centauri crisis protocols are now the galactic standard for first contact with collective consciousness species. Your violations became doctrine. Because they worked, Jessica said simply. Not because they were elegant or followed established theory. Humanity spent most of its history isolated, making contact with new civilizations through trial and error, often bloody error. We developed our protocols through failure, not theory. That's not better or worse than the galactic approach. It's just different. Professor Webb stood silent for a moment, his 3 eyes fixed on the young human officer. Finally, he spoke, his voice carrying through the hall. Class, I believe we have a unique opportunity. Lieutenant Morrison, would you be willing to provide a practical perspective on the material we've been covering? Jessica glanced around the amphitheater, meeting the curious gazes of 17 different species. She thought about being 19 and terrified, staring at alien signals she couldn't decode, knowing that millions of lives depended on her making the right guess. Sure, she said. But I'm keeping my datapad off. Trust me, Professor, I remember every detail. The lecture hall erupted in a mixture of clicks, chimes, and harmonic tones that her translator rendered as applause. Professor Webb's crystalline form shimmered with approval. Very well, Lieutenant. Perhaps you can start by explaining what the official reports got wrong. Jessica smiled. How much time do we have? Because that's going to take a while.